Welcome, everyone. We're happy you are here to join us for our info session with Ramsey County, one of our key employer partners at Metro State. Today's session is being recorded and closed captions are available for us. As I mentioned, if students wouldn't mind taking the pre-event survey in the chat, we'd appreciate it. So grateful to this Ramsey County team. Thank you for being with us today. Our career day, one of the key events. And we have so much to learn from you, and we appreciate you being here with us. So I'll turn it over to my Ramsey County colleagues.
Hello, everyone. Again, thank you. Just like Bill said, thank you for taking the time to meet with us and learn more about Ramsey County. We're excited to answer any questions that you have, and also to make sure that we share as much information as we can about the county. So I'm just going to start with introducing myself and giving a little bit of history and background on Ramsey County, and then we'll move into the highlight portion of our session. So my name is Noelana Gates, and I'm the Public Sector Pathways Coordinator here at Ramsey County, as well as the Talent Acquisition Supervisor. And I've been with the county for 7 years. Surprisingly, I didn't think it'd be that long, but it's been so fun, and I've just enjoyed every second of it. So in terms of my Public Sector Pathways coordination role, what that is really trying to help diversify our workforce and being really intentional about it. Identifying entry points or ways to get in and involved with the county. So this can be job shadows, internships, fellowships, work experiences, in any way to just get connected with us. And in terms of talent acquisition supervisor, my role is to really help with recruitment and again, tie into diversifying our workforce and ensuring that our departments are prepared and actively building strategy around getting a more diverse workforce and one that reflects the community that we serve. So now we can talk a little bit about just some fun facts or fun information about Ramsey County. So Ramsey County will actually be 173 years old this October. So happy birthday, early birthday coming to us. We are the second most populous county in Minnesota and one of the most racially and ethnically diverse counties in the state. And 60% of our workforce is female, and we have 4 generations in the workforce with the average age being 46, but our age ranges from about 16 to 75. And lastly, we have over 90 languages that are spoken within the county. So as you can see, our vision is to be a vibrant community where all are valued and thrive. And then our mission is to be that county of excellence working with you to enhance all of our quality of life. And so in 2016, we revised our mission, vision, and goals. And we wanted to really make sure that the actions and the work that we do across the county for our residents and the community speak to all or at least some of the goals that we have in place. And at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the goals. So strengthening our well-being, cultivating economic prosperity, enhancing access to opportunities, and being fiscally accountable. And in terms of the structure of our workforce, Ramsey County is organized into 5 service teams. So we have health and wellness, information and public records, safety and justice, economic growth and community investment, and our strategic team that is wrapped around on the outside of this circle. And then you'll see in the middle is residents, because our residents are first and they're at the center of all the services and everything that we do. So within these 5 service teams, we have 35 different departments. And there's over 4,000 employees, as well as over 200 job titles. So that lets you know it's a pretty big organization, and there's a lot of variety that allows for a place for anybody to work. And also 80% of our workforce are union employees, so they're represented by a union. Okay. And then just throwing this out here for now, some of the reasons or some of the benefits about working at Ramsey County, of course, we have paid leaves. So up to 15 days of vacation, 15 days of sick leave, 12 holidays. And then we have our health insurance. So this includes the preventative care type of insurance, health, dental, life insurance. And then of course, really good retirement opportunity with para. And it's helpful. It's required if you work in governmental service and with Ramsey County, but it's good because we don't always think about retirement. But some of the other considerations are things like the work-life balance that we offer, the ability to really be a public servant and make meaningful contributions to our society on a daily basis. And so that's working local and serving the community at the same time. And then the opportunity to participate in like employee resource groups and committees to get involved across the county. And again, make those changes internally in our organization, but also for the community. And there's such a vast amount of different learning and development opportunities. There's tuition reimbursement that we offer annually that allows people to continue or advance their educational career path. And the last one I'll highlight is paid parental leave. And we have so many other benefits, but I'll just leave it at that for now. So with all of that being said, we're now going to hear from our information security department. So IS department, or IT, that's some may know it as. And also, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can definitely raise your hand. You can put it in the chat, or you can even come off of mute. We love to hear from people, and just make sure that we answer the things that you have. So IS, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Noe. Yeah, so as she said, myself and Matt Wold work for the Information Services Department, and that kind of spans a range of functions from networking and systems administration to information security. Matt Wold and myself work for information security, and you'll also hear from Teal during this portion about kind of the IS department as a whole. Next slide. So for those interested or who haven't heard, just going to give kind of a broad overview of what information security is, and then kind of how information security fits into Ramsey County as a whole. So information security, kind of the hot new team in IS, I think, in a lot of regards. Not historically one that's had its own department, but as Ramsey County has grown and as the needs for information security have grown, so has the team kind of out of the ground. So as a general overview, I kind of placed this image on the slide to give you an idea of different types of things that an information security professional might do. We look at things like system security, making sure that things are configured in a way that are defensible and loggable and are constantly on the lookout for potential breaches and things like that. That would be considered kind of the blue team side. The red team side is very much that offensive security piece. So intentionally breaking into systems to see where the flaws are in order to provide information and evidence as to how to patch them. And then the purple team kind of sits in the middle there, being you work on the blue team, but you also kind of test your own defenses. Next slide. So at Ramsey County, threw a little highlight layer on here. Typically, we're working in the blue team and on the purple team side of things. So in a lot of cases, we're working on either building those defenses, implementing new systems to help us gain more information to watch for potential threats coming at the network. If there's an incident, we're kind of first line of defense with the sysadmin and networking teams to help figure out what happened, figure out the extent of the breach, if there's a breach, figure out what was clicked on. If there's malware, we're looking into that, those types of things. Digital forensics is a big piece of our work here too. So sometimes piecing together those puzzles of what happened, how it happened, when it happened, and then providing reports off to other teams. And then on top of that, we're also kind of testing our own defenses. So working in that purple team side, implementing our kind of blue team structures around sensitive data, and then kind of poking at our own defenses to make sure they're configured in the way that we expect them to be. Sometimes that purple team bleeds into that red side over there. And some of those things that you see listed are going to be kind of part of the purple team activities. But I highlighted these two because mainly that's kind of what we're living in. Next slide. Ramsey County is unique as we look at private and public sector type information and data. Not only are we responsible for protecting, those standard types of data when you're looking at businesses, employee emails, employee IDs, all of those hiring documents that we bring in. But we're also protecting things for residents of Ramsey County. So as residents come into county healthcare facilities, or as they go in to vote, or as they are asking for services through our website, those county residents are also providing that data to us. So our job as employees here, it spans kind of a wide range of data types. So if there's some sort of compliance board that oversees the type of data, whether it be HIPAA for healthcare, PCI data for credit cards, elections data, criminal justice information, the county kind of touches all of those things as an employer. And so it makes for a very varied environment when it comes to protecting that data and making sure that we have proper controls in place to protect that, not only for the employees, but also for the residents of the county. So very widespread, very diverse, and not always the easiest to parse through, but it makes for an interesting job nonetheless. Next slide. And here again, just some of the typical responsibilities that we take on as part of the information security team. We do some threat hunting. For those who aren't aware, that's just looking through logs, looking through systems, and poking around to see if anything looks out of place. Purple teaming, that's that testing our own defenses. Incident response, if a security incident comes up, we're trying to respond and remediate. Implementing systems, tuning those systems, making sure we're able to see more than we could the day before. Forensics, malware analysis, and writing and editing policies as they pertain to information security. So a lot of things, a lot of diverse systems, a lot of diverse responsibilities, and we're always kind of on the lookout for new talent and new people to kind of help us evolve the program as it continues to grow, because it's an ever-changing threat landscape out there. Next slide. Well,
yeah, thank you. So I'm just going to kind of go through some of these roles that Ramsey County has for IS security. So we do offer an internship role, which I think is a really great way if you're interested in security to kind of get your feet wet a little bit and see what that's like. There's a little asterisk to the bottom. You have to be enrolled in an accredited educational institution to have that internship. But if that's something that you're interested in, you could get a lot of good experience with. I know it's service ticket support, and sometimes people are like, "Oh, service tickets, that doesn't sound very fun." But I think it's really interesting because working on these kind of tickets really helps somebody really learn those tools and the environment and see what's out there, and to be able to see how those tools work and to be able to interact with them on a daily basis. So an intern would do that. Alert monitoring and investigations. So, you'd be kind of keeping your eyes on, dashboards for various tools, and when alerting pops up, you'd start that investigation to find out, why that alert happened, and if there's action that needs to be taken, you could reach out to a security engineer or security analyst to help figure out what those actions would be. You'd be helping to support tool implementations and security initiatives. So a lot of times we're always evaluating new tools or new initiatives. And we certainly need people to help test those tools and to find new tools and to help us find new ways to find these threats that are either trying to make their way into our environment, or that just kind of maybe some flaws in the systems. And then you always have to be willing to learn those new tools and skills and practice on the job. Things are always changing. What works one day for securing the network may not work in a couple of weeks. So we're always changing, always trying to find new and better ways to do things. Next slide. So here's just kind of a breakdown of the roles that are in the security team. So we have that, of course, that security intern. And then we have an IS Tech Services Specialist 1, which would translate into other roles as like a cybersecurity analyst. We have a Tech Services Specialist 2, which would translate into a security engineer. Then we have a technical architect, which would be a cybersecurity architect. They'd be the people that would be responsible for figuring out how the tools went together and how the systems talk to each other. A security engineer, just to backtrack a little bit, would be a person who would be more designed like to keep those tools running, teach people how to use those tools. They'd be kind of the go-to for the intern and the security analysts on maybe how to take, what next steps to take when, alerting pops up. Maybe there's an incident and we need to figure out what those next steps are. And then jumping back down to the last one, the Chief Information Security Officer, that's the CISO. That's the person that's in charge of all security initiatives, policies and procedures. They're really the go-to person that everybody reports to on the security team. Next slide. And then some helpful marketable skills for security. These are kind of the things that if you know will definitely help you. Familiarity with programming and scripting languages, definitely a plus. So a lot of stuff works with Python and PowerShell, Perl, Go, C, and C++. So having some knowledge of that would certainly be helpful. Understanding those networking basics, so ports, protocols, OSI model, TCP, IP, definitely all good things that you definitely need to know. Understanding of operating systems, so definitely how to work in Windows and Linux. There's a lot of times when we're using Linux to tear like malicious files apart. So definitely good things to know there. Definitely good if you can memorize a lot of acronyms. Just seems like acronyms are everywhere in security and I guess IT in general. And then a desire to learn and evolve through the processes. And, I think that's one of the big things, probably for IT in general, but definitely for security. Again, everything changes so rapidly and there's always new tools and new frameworks coming out that, the desire to learn and to understand how everything fits together is definitely crucial here for security. And then the ability to think critically and make decisions quickly. So, you might be kind of sitting there one moment where nothing's maybe happening and the next moment, you're getting hit with a phishing attack and, things are happening quickly. And so you need to be able to make critical decisions quite quickly and know when to get the right people involved. So next slide. And then here's some minimum qualifications that are required. So for the technical services specialist 1, which is like an analyst role, having a bachelor's degree in computer science is really what's required, but there is a substitution that can be made. So if you have 4 years of related experience in these other fields, I guess, like server hardware and server applications, those things can be in lieu of that bachelor's degree. And then for the service specialist 2, which would be the security engineer, a bachelor's degree or 2 years of these items and like a 2-year degree, 6 years of related experience here. So just something to kind of keep aware of if you're interested in security and moving through your education. And the next slide. And I will pass it off to Teal.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Thanks, Kyle. I'm Teal Gergen. I lead the infrastructure teams at Ramsey County, and I'll be handing off to Carla, who is a part of the one of the application support groups, the GIS group. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you taking the time. Investing in yourself is such a critical thing. And I'm happy to be in your presence and to be here today to tell you a little more about Ramsey County. So from infrastructure services, we provide a wide range of technology platforms, so the network, the telephone system, the servers, the storage, and a wide variety of applications that we support that are still considered part of the infrastructure services. There's a lot of different diverse skill sets that we look for, and it's important to have a group of people that have a wide range of skills and experiences to deliver our services. Next slide, please. Making everyone secure, security is everyone's job, really, is what I wanted you to understand with this slide. Some of the things that we accomplished in the last 12 to 18 months, we're constantly upgrading our networks. We did a data center core network refresh to the Cisco ACI platform. We implemented new Palo Alto firewalls with our security partners, and obviously it took all of the organization because there had to be downtime to swap out a production firewall, et cetera. We implemented a new digital faxing system, and we're constantly working on our hosting capabilities. We do consider ourselves to be a hosting provider, and Ramsey County business leaders have a choice about where they can host their systems, whether they host them internally with my teams, or they choose to host them with external vendors. And so we have to have that mindset that we have to win the business. We have to provide a high quality service to our internal business partners. It's not a foregone conclusion that they will be hosting their applications on the infrastructure managed by IS. Next slide, please. This is our scorecard. This helps you understand a little more detail about what is infrastructure. So again, the telecom services, most people don't know this, but the #1 way that Ramsey County interacts with the residents of Ramsey County is through phones. There were, over 1.3 million inbound phone calls and 1.1 million outbound phone calls in 2021 alone. And so, how Ramsey County manages those call centers and contact centers that are the bulk of those transactions, how we manage the technology that those people that are on those phones use when they're working with residents, all of that has to work in a symphony. And the infrastructure team plays a role in that, but we can't do it without our application support peers. And Carla will give you a little taste of what that's about. Networking services is what it sounds like. We have to provide high quality connectivity to the 70+ locations that make up Ramsey County facilities, where the 4,000+ staff work on a daily basis. I think most of you are aware of a term called IoT, the Internet of Things. More and more devices are connected, and how they connect to the network securely is everyone's job, everyone's responsibility. And so we work very closely anytime that a new type of device is proposed to be introduced to the network. It doesn't just get plugged in. It has to go through a security review, and it has to get properly configured and secured, and the password can't be admin and things like that. And so those are some of the basic things that we look at. We don't just allow new network devices to automatically occur. Server infrastructure is what it sounds like. The Microsoft Windows Server platform. 99% of our servers are virtualized on the VMware space and in the Azure hosting space. And then we also have storage. So we have storage servers from NetApp with terabytes and terabytes of data, hosting different, the data is some of it's in applications, some of it is just in the CIFS file shares that people use to do their Microsoft Office and productivity applications. We provide backup services, so enterprise backup and disaster recovery. We ensure that we have a copy of production data on site that we can restore, multiple copies on site that we can restore, and then we also have copies of production data off-site that we can restore at a moment's notice. We provide data center services. We also provide a role that's called technology solutions architecture, where we partner and go on a journey with new ideas and new basically applications. So the business has a new application to help them, say, track information about hazardous waste. We will go on a journey with them to architect that from a technology perspective to ensure that it complies with our standards and is secure and can be implemented to meet defined requirements. And then finally, we provide database services in the form of SQL and Oracle platform that's on our storage, on our servers, on our network, following the OSI model, et cetera, et cetera. Next slide, please. And I just want to land it again. Security is job one. I want to. Maybe it's too much, but I want to emphasize it. I hope you all can understand that it's not just one department that focuses on security. Everyone at Ramsey County has to play a role in security. You know, I, as an end user, have to make sure that I don't click on some kind of mischievous email and then accidentally get and share my credentials to my Office 365 account to a nefarious actor. You know, that's everyone's responsibility at Ramsey County. And if you have that mindset, even if you're a software developer, I think it's a very modern mindset that I want to encourage everyone to take. And then with that wraps up everything that I wanted to share about infrastructure. And I'll hand it off, I think, now to Carla. Next slide.
Great, thanks, Teal. I'm Carla Coates, and I work in the Enterprise GIS group within IS. And since GIS is a specialized piece of technology that not everybody is familiar with, I thought I would start out by looking at what GIS is. So next slide, please. Thank you. GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems, and it's a spatial system that we use to create, manage, analyze, and map all types of data. GIS integrates location data, which is the where, for example, a point or other feature on a map, with descriptive information about each of those features. So this technology is database driven, so map features and the data about these features are all stored within a spatial database or databases. So now that we know a little bit about GIS, let's take a look at why GIS is important to Ramsey County. And then after that, we'll follow up by looking at some of the things that the county does with GIS. And then we'll end up with GIS jobs at Ramsey County. So next slide, please. So why is GIS important to Ramsey County? So it's estimated that about 80% of the data that we use is actually tied to a location. So by putting it into a GIS, that data can be mapped and analyzed geographically. So mapping and data analysis is a powerful tool for things like visualizing information. So rather than sending someone a spreadsheet of locations with just a bunch of addresses on it, GIS can actually provide the end user with a map showing where those locations are, what they're near, and provide additional information about those features. It's also a powerful tool for improving communication and transparency, so we can provide more information to more people, and increasing workflow and efficiency. So I have a background in emergency management, and one of the emergency management directors from another county told me once that after they had experienced flooding in their county, that they were actually able to compile the property information that they needed to apply for recovery funding within a few hours. That would have taken them several weeks to do without GIS. And also overall better decision making. So when we're doing things like determining where to expand services, we can take a look at things like identifying areas within our communities that may currently be underserved. Maybe we can do a better job serving those communities. So all in all, GIS really benefits both our organization and our residents. So next slide, please. So now that we've talked a little bit about GIS and why it's important to Ramsey County, let's take a look at the Ramsey County Enterprise GIS. So my small group is located in IS. We work closely with either most or all the other areas in IS to design, maintain, manage the GIS infrastructure. And this includes things like hardware, software, databases, servers, security, etc. We also provide GIS to both internal and external users, so both county staff and the public. And one of our goals is to make this very complex system easy for everyone to use so they can get the information they need quickly and easily. And this includes information and analysis, applications, and tools along with other resources. So next slide, please. So in terms of supporting GIS users within the county organization, so our county staff, Enterprise GIS provides them with GIS capabilities, tools, data, and applications that might include desktop software, web and mobile applications, custom mapping, analysis, reporting, and data. So the map on the right is an example of a customized mapping and analysis request that we received. We use census data to analyze median household incomes for each of the commissioner districts within the county. So we also provide a lot of technical support. So if staff has any questions about how something works or if something's not working quite right, they can contact us for solutions. And we also train our users. So we want to make sure that our staff is comfortable using this technology. So next slide. So we also provide access to a lot of GIS resources to the public and organizations outside of Ramsey County. So we make web and mobile applications available along with GIS data itself. So just the raw GIS data, we make those available online. And we also work with cities and other organizations to improve efficiencies, which saves us all time and effort. So if another organization has data that they're already collecting that we might be able to use, it saves us time from having to collect that data ourselves. We can just partner and share information. Next slide, please. So now let's take a look at GIS data. So the power of GIS is really the information behind the map or the data that we have about all these locations on the map. So it provides us with the ability to do more than just simply display features on the map. So we can interact with the features on the map and we can perform spatial analyses like determining proximity. So what else is near a feature? We can find a route. So if I want to know how to get somewhere, I can do that. We can show clusters and hotspots of different things. And we can generate statistics, charts, and reports. So we saw that one on the Commissioner District map on that earlier slide. And we can also identify features within a target area. So on the right-hand side of the screen is just a snapshot of an application that residents can use to find out which county commissioner district they live in so they can contact the right county commissioner if they have something they'd like to bring up with them. So next slide, please. And departments within Ramsey County, they all have varying data needs. So this is a very small list of some of the data that some of our departments collect and use. For instance, we have a lot of information regarding our road network within the county. We maintain where the road center lines are, information about construction projects, and signage. And we'll take a look at some sign data in just a moment. So we literally have hundreds of GIS layers of information at Ramsey County, and all of those are stored in our databases. So next slide. So let's take a look at Public Works. So Public Works uses GIS to collect and maintain information about its county highway signs. So they have a highway sign asset tracking application. So let's take a look at that in a little more detail. On the right side of the screen is a map that shows points overlaid on top of some aerial photography. So each of these points represents a highway sign that our Public Works Department is responsible for. And then on the left is a snapshot of data of basically the data behind each of these points. So when this data was created, Public Works decided which pieces of information were important to them, which then determined how this data structure in the database was designed. So each record or row in that data table on the left represents information that Public Works collects about each particular sign on the map. So basically each sign has its own set of information attached to it. So having this information in the database tied to each location on the map allows them to do things like track when signs need to be replaced. So when they're ready to go out in the field to replace signs, they can run a query or ask a question of the system that returns a map to them that shows the locations of only those signs that need to be replaced, along with maybe a report that might give them some information about each of these signs, such as the sign type and the part number that they need to bring with them out in the field. All right, next slide. So next, let's take a quick look at some of the interactive online mapping applications that we have. These online mapping applications are a really effective way for staff and the public to access information quickly and easily. So one of our jobs is to actually set these applications up and configure them so people can use them. The image on this data slide or on this slide is actually a screenshot from a page on our county's website that provides information about our interactive recycling and waste collection site application. So it's something, if you're interested, you can do a search for that online, find information about that. All right, next slide. Some of the online applications that we've built are actually for internal users only. This is one example. This particular map editor was created for a certain group of approved people working in Public Works to edit and view their information regarding construction projects. So this screenshot shows information about a road closure on northbound Lexington Avenue that took place over the summer. So it describes things like where the road closure was, which communities the construction occurred in, and other roads that were impacted during the construction. And we can actually see on the map also exactly where the project area was and where the traffic was rerouted during construction. So next slide. And finally, let's take a look at one of the applications that both staff and public might use. And this is food resources. So this is an interactive map designed to allow people to find locations of food shelves, lower no-cost groceries, farmers markets, and no-cost meals. So next slide. So in this screenshot, I was looking for a food shelf in the White Bear Lake area, and I found one that is located on Whitaker Street. So by clicking on that location, I got a pop-up window that provided me with even more information about that particular food shelf, like when it's open and whether or not they have curbside pickup. Again, all of this information is being pulled in from our GIS database. So if something changes like hours, the information displayed to the end user can be updated by going in and updating the information in that GIS database. Next slide. And finally, let's take a look at GIS jobs and internships at Ramsey County. So the Enterprise GIS team, which is the team that I'm part of, we're a small team with a lot of responsibilities that span across many areas in IS. So we have a manager who's the business solutions manager, and then we have 4 staff, application developer, business analyst, GIS support specialist, and then my role, which is the technical services lead specialist for GIS administration. So all of us pretty much do everything. So we work very closely together, and also we work very closely with the other areas in IS. So next slide. In terms of jobs in Enterprise GIS, because all of us pretty much do everything, jobs within our small group require pretty advanced GIS knowledge and skills. Typically requires a relevant degree along with at least a couple of years of progressive GIS experience. So next slide, please. The good news, though, is that many of our departments in Ramsey County have jobs that utilize GIS. So the job skills required for these positions range from having little or no GIS experience to having or gaining more advanced skills. So within the other departments is also where you're most likely to find internship opportunities. So I know that Parks and Public Works regularly hire internships whose responsibilities include using GIS technology. So to wrap up my part of the presentation, I have to say that I've truly enjoyed my career in GIS so far. It's always been challenging, it's always changing, and so I'm always learning new things. And I've gotten to work on some pretty interesting projects with a lot of really great people. So I hope that some of you will find it as interesting as I do. So with that, I'm going to toss it back to HR. Thanks.
All right, thank you everyone that just shared all that information. I've learned so much even just from connecting with this group, even after working at the county for so long. So I'm gonna do a quick crash course on just how to apply for county jobs and highlight some really important things, but I wanna make sure we leave some time at the end to answer any questions that everyone might have. So in terms of employment opportunities, or even this could be internship opportunities as well, or ways to get connected. You're going to want to go to the Ramsey County website, so ramseycounty.us, and then select the jobs page. And once you do that, it will end up bringing you to the general page that shows, okay, do you want to look at current job openings? Do you want to just view all the job descriptions that we have and figure out if there's a cool job you want to work that way? Or even if you already submitted an application and want to check on the status of that application. So for today, we're going to look at what it will look like if you select the current job openings, which shows all of the jobs that we're accepting applications for. And so it'll bring up a list of those openings. You would then select the one that you're interested in. It might be paralegal, but hopefully it said something with like IS on it. And once you select that, then it would bring you to the description of the job. And that would let you know the salary, the location, if the job is full-time, part-time, what department is hiring, as well as the closing date or that deadline to apply. And we'll go a little bit more in depth on this too. But also on this page, you'll be able to see where it says basic function. You'll get a general sense of what the job duties are and what this job is looking to, what the duties would be. And then it lists out the examples of work performed, as well as what the minimum education and experience requirements are. So if you recall way at the beginning of the presentation, someone touched on the minimum qualifications for the job. This page will have all of the information that you need. So after reviewing all that, and if you determine, you know what, I like this job, I want to go for it, then you would select the apply button. So once you hit apply, you will have to create an account in the government job system. The cool thing about this is that once you create an account, you have a profile that's already set up. So then if you wanted to apply to any other government jobs, whether it's like Hennepin County, City of Minneapolis, City of St. Paul, you'll already have a profile with your general information in it. So you won't have to continuously redo that same or provide that same information. So the things that would be on that profile is going to be your personal information. So like your name, your contact information, your employment history, education experiences, as well as any other additional information that you want to share. So for instance, if you speak more than one language, or if you have varying certifications, that's where you can add that information. That's in addition to the general information you have. You can also list your references in the event that you are made a job offer. That information will already be there, and the employer can then quickly contact your references. So that information, as I said, would be considered your profile, and it won't change unless you update it. So that's the other thing you have to be mindful of, is if you're applying to multiple jobs and you're using the same profile, say your phone number changes or you want to use a different email address, you got to make sure you update that so it's as accurate as can be. The only thing, or one of the main things that will you'll have to do each time you apply is answer supplemental questions. And again, we'll in a little bit we'll go over that a little bit more detail. But each job application requires supplemental questions to be answered. And so some additional helpful tips, just areas to pay attention to and really make sure you are completing in its entirety is, again, that closing date and time. So when you look at the job posting and you see, oh, this job closes in 1 week, that lets you know that you have a week to really prepare and submit your application. And then again, that other critical piece, looking at the minimum qualifications that's required for that job. So scrolling down on that job posting to see, okay, where it says minimum qualifications, reviewing, do I have the required education that's listed? Or do I have a year of experience that might be listed? And if I don't have those things, is there that substitution that says, okay, if there's 4 years or a bachelor's degree that's required for this job, but the substitution says, if you have 4 years of related work experience, that can substitute for it. So it's really reviewing that to see if you qualify. And then if you have questions around that are like, maybe I do, maybe I don't, I would encourage you to apply. So you can either apply, you can call the contact that's listed on that posting, but don't exclude yourself, especially when you're unsure. Let HR be the one to say, you don't meet min quals. And even if that's the case and you feel that you do, you can always have that conversation with HR to say, actually, I do meet the min quals. Because the common misconception is that there's the computer is screening people's resumes and applications, when really there's a real live person on the end reviewing the information that you submit. And those are people on my team, and I've had experience doing it as well. So the other thing to highlight is that when you complete the application, you will be required to answer supplemental questions. These questions are scored, so it's really important that you pay attention to what the question is asking and how you answer it. And the next slide has an example of encouraging things to do and some things that you should not do. And then depending on your every application, or after you answer the supplemental questions, you're given a score based off of your answers. And then depending on if you meet the pass point for that specific posting, then you'll be able to be added to the eligible list. And the list is what's sent to departments so they can contact candidates for interviews. And so this is an example of what I mean when I say supplemental question. So you'll see this one question really has like a lot of questions embedded in it. So this question says, please describe in detail your skill level for each of the following. Include when and where the experience occurred, how often you use the programs, and provide at least one example of how you used each program. And then it lists the different areas. And then if you don't have the experience that's being requested in this question, you can always say not applicable. I encourage people to answer more in the sense of trying not to say not applicable and writing or including any transferable skills or similar experience that you may have. One of the things you just should really stray away from and not do is write C resume or C application, because that will give you a really low score. That doesn't help me understand the experience that you might have related to this question. So an example could be of an answer that you could use is, as a student at Metro State, I use Word and Excel on a daily basis. Examples of how I use it are and XYZ, like you list out the examples. Additionally, during my employment at a store, I was a stocker and I used Excel to input and track inventory. I created pivot tables and added equations to ensure everything was correct. So just really going in depth about each area and each portion of what the question is asking. And so, as I said, that was a really like super fast crash course. And I'm more than happy to connect with people after, as well as our IS representatives on here. We can work through what it's like to apply and the best way to apply for jobs. But in the meantime, you can definitely stay connected with Ramsey County on the various social media that's listed. And then these are just some frequently asked questions I wanted to kind of highlight. In terms of our work environment, right now, Ramsey County is a hybrid work environment. So it requires employees to work 2 days in the office, and then the remainder of the week can be worked remotely. And there's also a $500 home office stipend that's provided after 6 months of employment. In terms of COVID, we're following all the safety protocols in terms of spacing, providing personal protective gear, and cleaning supplies. And we do have a requirement that all new hires are to be vaccinated, with the ability to request a reasonable accommodation, a medical or religious exemption if they're not vaccinated. So there's a process for that as well. And then in terms of hiring candidates that have been justice impacted or people that have had criminal history, all jobs do require that we run a background check. And so this looks into previous criminal history, and it's considered on a case-by-case basis. So the things that human resources would take into account is the offense that a candidate has, is that related to the job? Have there been repeatable offenses? What's the level of offenses? Is it a felony, a misdemeanor? How long ago was the offense? And if there's been any rehabilitation. And we like to get this awareness out to let people know that even if members of the community do have criminal histories, you can still be considered for a position at Ramsey County. It doesn't automatically rule you out. And then lastly, in terms of hiring international students or supporting the work visa process, in summary or in short, yes, we do this. However, there's not any guarantee that we'd be able to completely support the work visa process, just because of how lengthy the process is and some of the things that are out of our control in terms of like the number of visas that the Department of Labor provides. And let's see. And I'll just be transparent too, within the past 10 years, we've been able to support about 5 visas successfully. And again, it's a very long process, and it can be contingent on the lotteries that are used for the H-1B visas. And again, it's not guaranteed. But what would make someone the right candidate is if they go through the employment or the hiring process and the employer chooses that we want to hire this person, then that makes that person the right candidate to go through that process. And in the involvement that is required is from human resources, an immigration attorney, hiring managers of that department, as well as the Department of Labor. So it's a really collaborative process, and we are willing to work through it. So a lot of information thrown at you. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing, but we wanna know if you have any questions, whether it's regarding the hiring process or the specific areas within IS, or if you just wanna share a comment, now's your time. And you can do it in the chat, or you can come off mute, whatever works best.
While our students are thinking, Noe, I will ask the first question. And that is for the Diversity Networking and Job Fair on September 29th. Ramsey County will be there. And students will have the option of signing up for 10-minute one-on-one sessions or going to a group information session like this for 30 minutes. I'm curious about the 10-minute sessions. What happens there? How do you recommend students proceed? How do you like to see the conversation unfold?
Great question. I just like to encourage people that it's a general like networking conversation. We're there to learn about each other. I want to hear about potential candidates that could work in Ramsey County. And I'm sure you all would like to hear about the opportunities that we have in Ramsey County. So if there's a specific area that you're interested in, a specific field, you can come with questions about that. Even if it's, I'm in my first year of college, like what can I do at Ramsey County? Like just starting that conversation, it'll go from there. And Teal or anyone else that wants to add any insight, feel free. But just remember, like it's an opportunity for you to get to know someone at Ramsey County and add to your network. So when you are ready, or if you want to begin looking for an internship or an employment opportunity, you have somebody that you can reach out to. You have a connection.
Yeah, thank you, Noah. Noah, I like that, the way you answered that and framed that. It's important to introduce yourself. I think you also want to share your passion for technology. It's important in an interview, in those networking opportunities, that you can convey that you have the ability to learn and you have a passion for learning and you have a passion for technology support and providing high quality customer service in any role that you might be in. It's about making sure that you are providing the right outcomes based off of the task at hand. So if you can connect your technical experience with your passion, even if your experience is light, if you have a passion for something, you are constantly learning about it. I'm constantly watching YouTube videos and Googling about different technology. And I just before this, I was in kind of a learning session with Microsoft about some of the new things that they're doing in the Microsoft Azure hosting space. So I myself just have a passion for technology and I keep on learning. So that's what I would add.
Thank you so much. How about our student participants? Thank you for being here. What questions do you have? In a previous session, the speakers called on people randomly and said, tell us a little about yourself. That was an interesting approach. So maybe you could type your question in the chat. I put in the chat the rest of the career day events we've got at 4 o'clock. The person of staff is going to talk more about the diversity networking jobs on the 29th and what to expect, how to get ready for it. There's the registration link for that event there. And also for cybersecurity majors, there will be a special event on September 21st. Last call for any questions or comments from our students. I really appreciate all of you being here today, students and Ramsey County colleagues. Thank you so much. This was a great event, and I hope to see more Metro State students as interns and Metro State alumni as your Ramsey County co-workers in the future. So thanks, everybody. Great to see you. And hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Look forward to seeing you on the 29th.
Thank you all. Have
Thanks
a
for
great
having
day.
us.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.